everybody. Today is a fantastic day, not only because I have the amazing opportunity to be sharing with you today, but because it's the best day of the life of this SEO specialist. He has achieved the best results for his most important client. Top rankings, best conversions in history, better benefits, you name it. So what will his client and boss do? Maybe give him a little raise, wouldn't be bad, right? Or some paid vacation, like at Moz, that's very cool. Yeah, or a promotion, well, maybe a little bit excessive, but yeah, that wouldn't hurt neither. So please, I want your feedback. Raise your hand. What will be? A raise? No? How come? A vacation? Vacation, yeah. Or a promotion. He deserves a promotion for those results, for God's sake. Okay, none of them is true, hasn't been that good. They challenge him to get more. Abroad, of course, because there wasn't anything to get anymore there where he was working already. His clients say that there is much more abroad and he needs to go international. Of course, he has no fucking idea how to do international SEO. So let's start by taking your SEO Explorer hat and getting ready for a little bit of international SEO adventure. And for this, we have the international SEO map for the quest of the future of your ROI. The first step is to identify your international SEO potential, which is a step that, unfortunately, some companies don't really validate at the beginning. And it's very important that you validate your company characteristics, operation, web goals, your language, country, delivery support, pricing model, everything to check that if you are really ready to go abroad. It's not only to publish a website and that's it, it's to do business abroad. Also, take into consideration your starting point, what you already have at the moment in your site, the current traffic, the current keywords, which languages are bringing you traffic, which international markets are bringing you traffic, which are the top sources, which are the search engines, really, because in some countries, they don't use that much Google, like in Russia, for example, they use Yandex. So all of this information is very important that you validate it at the beginning with Google Analytics, for example, and then go to a higher level. Verify the visibility that you already have with search engines, with queries and pages, the visibility, the click-through rate that you get from there. You can check this with Google Master Tools. And then you really need to do a research on your industry search activity. You really need to perform a very deep and complete keyword research. From seasonality, the trend, the volumes to see if it really compensates. There's enough traffic out there per language and per country. Identify also the devices. In some countries, we have seen it's very popular to go mobile right now, but it is even more important in some other countries. So it's very important that you verify this with any of these tools. Additionally, please, not because everybody speaks English, and even you are mostly native English speakers, but there are different types of English, depending on the country. Maybe some little details, but also a little bit of huge details too, and the type of not only pronunciation. So it is very important that you have native support in order to do this research. This is fundamental in order to validate well. And with all of these information that we have seen before, we are able really to make a decision to see if it is really feasible, it is really beneficial for us to go international or no. So for this, we have this formula that has been originally shared by Himenshu. He's a great web analyst. Follow him on Twitter at SEO Himenshu. And we are going to be able with this, the number of conversions and number of visits that we need for a break-even for each international market. And like this, we are going to be able to take a better decision. If for some reason we validate that we are not able to achieve the minimum required traffic and conversion in order to be profitable internationally, maybe it's too soon for us. So what we can do is to protect our brand internationally and to buy the CCTLDs and to set some Google Analytics alerts. So when we are ready, we can go ahead and verify it again, and maybe it is the time to go international. Although if we verify that there's enough traffic, there are enough conversions to be profitable, then it's the time to target our international audience. The first thing to do is to identify how we can target it better. Ideally, it will be per country, but again, we need to be profitable. We really need to validate and to prioritize first. How will it be really viable for our country, for our business to go to another country? So let's check if there are any constraints or characteristics that really affect our operations. If it really the geography here, or if there are not any constraints, maybe it is better to start targeting the languages first. On the other hand, if we really identify that there's not enough amount of visit or conversion per country individually, then maybe we can start targeting the language first. And it is fundamental that we understand our international audience. We need to dig deeper than the previous step. We really need to know the demographic characteristic, which are the cultural factors in each country, their online and buying preferences. We can also use some surveys and some tools to develop this type of research, and the same with our competitors. Let's take a look, which are the weaknesses, which are the strengths of our competitors, what other marketing activities they already have. Where are they? Why they are in those positions already? Why they are so strong? How does their online community behave at the moment? Which are the most popular products that people really consume from their website? We can use any of these tools also to identify this type of characteristic of our competitors. And once that we have all of this information, we are going to be able to set a specific international SEO goal for each one of our projects, each one of our processes, to identify which are the keywords, which are the pages that we need to build, the content that we should really build to connect with the audience in order to build our international business. And now is the time to develop an international optimized site. And the first thing to take into consideration here is very, very important and fortunate to comment. You can see the Dropbox site here. Don't show your non-English version, your international versions, whether language or country targeted, through the same URLs. Your international version needs their own web structures. And we can see here how, for example, if you are targeting the country, the best way is to go with their specific ccTLDs. Although at some point, unfortunately, that is not possible because of technical or resources constraints. Though if that happens, we have also subdirectories and subdomains. And all of these have their own pros and cons. With subdirectories, we will have the opportunity to grow popularity much more easily because they inherit the popularity from the root domain. With subdomains, on the other hand, we will have the opportunity to index much more content independently. So we can see here, for example, TripAdvisor has gone international, targeting different countries with different ccTLDs. And Microsoft is doing it so with subdirectories in this case. If we are targeting the language instead, we can go again with subdirectories or subdomains with their own pros and cons. And we can see here, for example, how Skype has gone language targeted with subdirectories. But you can see here, and this is very important, that they are not featuring a flag there when they allow users to switch between different languages, because again, they are targeting languages, they are not targeting countries. So it's very important that you keep that into consideration if you are language targeting too. On the other hand, we have Engadget or CNN. You see how they are doing this with subdomains because it's much better for them. They don't have popularity issues or to grow popularity, and they prefer this in order to have independent entities where they will be able to index much more content. And something fundamental, even if you are language or country targeting, you need to translate and localize your whole web experience from your URLs, your title, to meta descriptions, navigation, content, photos, everything, please. Even reviews, incentivize the reviews in each language, the prices, the currencies, everything, please. It's fundamental. I love this example. It's Delivery Hero, Lieferheld in Germany. Lieferheld is Delivery Hero in German. So they started in Germany with Lieferheld.de. Is a food delivery service, online food delivery service. And when they went to the German market, they had Lieferheld.de, of course. But when they wanted to target the Australian market, of course, they couldn't do that with the Lieferheld name because it's in German. So they had deliveryhero.com.au. But then again, they wanted to reach Mexico. But in Spanish, they found out that the name delivery, entregas, is much more ambiguous. So it was not very clear for them that it was going to be the best selection. So they instead selected Super Antojo. It's like super craving. That is much more related with food. But even like that, with different names and all, you can see the brand, you can see the experience, you can tell they are the same set. They are on the same side. And again, with China, what they did, and this is very important with non-Latin characters, when there are non-ASCII characters, it's true that there are IDNs, international domain names, but it's tricky to set, it's tricky to track them with Google Analytics too. So the best way, I will say, at least right now, is to transliterate your name. So when they went to China, they used the Chinese name, and I, unfortunately, don't know Chinese, so I cannot tell you what it is. It is Delivery Hero again in Chinese, but the transliteration of Delivery Hero in this case. And please, please, this is very important, fundamental. You can see even here, unfortunately, even Starbucks does it. Don't leave your URLs in English because, you know, I speak English, but a lot of Spanish speakers don't, other people don't necessarily. Your whole experience should be translated again. And also, something very important, make your navigation accessible. Not only feature the different countries or the different languages that you are targeting, but and make it visible for users, but also make it crawlable. So the search engines can also identify that you are having or you have established all the web structures to target these other countries. Something also very important, don't push your users. Don't take your users where they haven't asked to go. A lot of sites automatically redirect me to the Spanish-speaking version or to the Spanish version, the targeting to Spain, but it's not good. I didn't ask to go there. The best way is to suggest, as Amazon does. Amazon identifies that I'm coming with a Spanish IP, that my browser is Spanish, and what they do is to tell me, hey, we have a version for you here that we think that might be more suitable according to your preferences, which is great, but don't automatically redirect users, please. And additionally, you can establish and you can indicate Google, in this case, with hreflang annotation, in which languages and alternatively to which country your different international versions are targeting with hreflang annotations. And you can not only include it on your HTML, but also add it in your XML sitemap using the media flow tool, which is a great tool which will facilitate the process again. And it's true, Google doesn't support other type of annotations like content language or lang annotation, but they are still supported by Bing and other search engines. So keep that in mind too, and make the most to give all of the type of signals that you can to search engines in general, because maybe Google is not the most important search engine in the country that you are targeting. Maybe it's Yandex, maybe it's Baidu in China. So it's very, very important that you take all of these additional signals into consideration for your website. And finally, if you at some point are country targeting, but you haven't gotten the opportunity to enable a CTLD for each country, so you are using a subdirectory or a subdomain, then the best way to geo-target this are through the webmaster tools of your search engine. For example, Google, Yandex, Bing allows you to geolocalize each of your subdomains or just subdirectories. And with this, you will have an international optimized web presence. And it's now the time to build its popularity, which can be tricky, a little bit tricky and different in international markets too. So in order to do this, the first thing is to understand how come your competitors in these different markets out there. Understand their link volume, the link profile, the types, the sources, who are linking to them, why, to which product, to which content, the trend over time of links. I am pretty positive that most of the time, if it is not in English, the competition will be much, much lower than the one that you will have expected to have for this same industry and these same services in the US or in English in general. You can use the typical tools that you are already using for link analysis and to-do link building too. And you should do the same also with your audience. Again, but from a linking perspective. Find out which are their preferences, which content formats do they prefer, in which social networks they hang out, who are the industry influencers that you should build a relationship with, their favorite media and blogs in each country. And you can use, again, some of the tools that you are already likely using for this. With all of this understanding, you will be able to establish a link building campaign to build assets, to build content that will be attractive for this type of audience that can vary a lot from country to country, from market to market, from languages too. Yeah, now it is. And again, in this process, it's fundamental. You do really need native support. From strategy to outreach. Really, outreach is very important that is implemented by a native. And the native person will also help you to understand much better the characteristic of each country or each language. And it's important that you leverage the local sites and you identify who are the influencers, who's the people who's really reacting to your content, and to build up much better relationship with them. The key here is to learn fast. You really need to learn fast. You can use the same tools again, but you will have likely less time because there's a high gap within your competitors. So in this case, it's not only to develop the typical content marketing, but again, I will say that it's also to align all of the activities of your company, the activities that you likely already have from marketing, content, operation perspective in order to connect with these international audiences. I love this example because it's something that every company in the world has. HR, a job advertisement. So what this startup in Spain did was that they knew that there was already going a huge crisis, financial crisis in Spain, so they wouldn't really have any issue by hiring good engineers at a good price, really, but they wanted to make a stand, they wanted to connect with the audience, they wanted to send a positive message to the community. So what they did was to build this microsite that is called notevayas.alemania.com, don't go to Germany.com, because a lot of young people in Spain, engineers especially, go to Germany to find better jobs. So with this, and they did this in a very funny way, like they featured their friends and their mothers, like, don't go, we have here your favorite food, we have your football team, we can go to the beach, better weather, things like that. So people was hearing what they wanted to hear, that there was still good jobs in Spain, right? So you can see the link trend there. It went viral. It was even featured in national TV because it was seen like a hope message to the Spanish people. So it's about understanding, really, the local audience, what they need to hear, how you can connect with them. And you really need to go ahead fast. You really need to learn fast in order to go ahead and close that popularity gap that you will likely have against your competitors at the beginning. And after you do all this, it's fundamental that you measure, that you understand what is working well individually for each language or country version. And for this, it's fundamental that you measure, that you track each one of the different versions in an independent basis. You need to set their own webmaster tools profiles, Google Analytics profiles, accounts, if there are different websites, even if there are subdirectories or subdomains too. It's very important that you have a granular vision of each one of the keywords, the landing pages that are working well or not. If they are not working well, why? And please pay special attention also to the type of alignment that these have with your already ongoing process. Maybe you are attracting traffic for some reason with a version that you shouldn't. But please, it's something very important. Pay attention to something that should be fundamental for us. And you can use also the same tools that you are using at this moment. This is only the beginning. This is only the surface. Web analytics is a war of its own. And you can see here two amazing presentations about web analytics for international markets from Danesh Mulevic and Annie Lopez. And you will see that it's a war of its own, that it has a lot of different possibilities to gather much more data, to cross and segment much more data. And like this, you will be able to understand, really understand your international market. What are their needs? How's your status, why you are there, and you are not advancing maybe as you had wished. And according to this, you will be likely make much better decisions internationally too. But what about international SEO ROI, right? We need to check that too. So in order to do that, we have here, again, some pre-set formulas. But yeah, I know, this can be complicated, right? It's a little bit tricky. And for this, I have built this tool that is called the International SEO ROI tool. You can access through this URL here, and you will be able to enter the data that you have with your process, and validate if it is positive or not. And also validate different scenarios that you will likely have to have in order to be ROI positive. And with this information, you will likely access in a much better way, an easy way, your international SEO process. So let's review the different steps that we have taken until now. Quick steps, but necessary steps. You have seen that unfortunately they are not as straightforward that we have wished, but they are necessary in order to implement really a successful and profitable international SEO process. And of course, our SEO friend that we met at the beginning, he's very happy. His boss will likely be happy with this information too, and he will be able now to do international SEO, as I expect that you can too with this information. You can be also international SEO explorer. And just one more thing before I leave. I have set this website, International SEO Map, you can access right now if you want, where I have gathered all of the information that I have shared before, and you can check, and you likely won't get lost again in your international SEO project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aleyda. Those were awesome slides.
Thank you.
Yes. So the ROI of international SEO, you probably talk to a lot of clients and you're trying to convince them or not convince them to invest in these channels. And you have this great calculator here. How do you convince the client, or how do you decide what markets and languages the client should be moving into?
Based on the research. The problem is, and I will tell you, that the most typical problem that I have is that at some point people come to me and say, hey, I have all of these different languages versions or different country versions, and I don't have the resources to build original content or to do anything really, any type of promotion, any type of marketing action for each one of them. And when they come with me with that issue, it's evident for me that they haven't done their work well at the beginning. Identifying really the viability, the feasibility, if these languages really needed to exist from the beginning, right? Or if they really will compensate the work, and if this is where they should be really targeting at the moment. So for me, it is fundamental. The first step, that is why it's for me, it's a very analytical type of process that you really need to research and validate and understand to be able to develop a successful international SEO project.
We have a question.
Thanks, Aleyda. 2 questions. One is, how'd you get so many pictures of Lego people?
Flickr Creative Commons. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Great. What's your favorite translate tool? So you're managing a campaign in keywords you don't know and can't read. So how do you translate those keywords and know which is the correct translation?
Yeah, well, there are some online tools, free tools, for example, the Google Translator. But really, when you do keyword research, even if I can do the first step just to validate a little bit of the volumes, I really need to have native support. I cannot do it by myself. Even they don't need to be SEOs. I mean, they don't really need to be a specialist on this. They just really need to be native people that will support me along the process. Of course, you can teach them if you want, but what it is important is that they give the feedback and say, yeah, but this translation, this term is not the most popular. It's not really the one that is used in my country or in my language. Try this other. So this type of feedback, for me, is fundamental. There is no translation that is possible with this. Well, even like this, there are other good translators. For example, there's one called Prompt. I used it a lot when I was working with the Russian market, so I really needed a translator, a good translator, and that worked pretty well. So, but beyond the software, native support is fundamental in this case.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, over here. And state your name.
Hi, my name is Alex. I just had a quick question. You know, we're talking about marketing, in these different countries, taking it beyond just kind of like an auto translator to, taking it to the next step. If you wanted to branch out in the market, would it stand to reason that you would need to have somebody, a native person from each language or that you're trying to market and dealing with them almost, I guess, on a consulting or on a full-time basis to produce that content throughout the campaign?
That's the thing. For example, the clients that I have worked in the past that are being really profitable in this international market, it really compensates for them to have like a community manager. And this community manager is the one who also like answer the calls, answer the question, because again, if you have a web version that is in French, the person who asks expect an answer in French again. So it's not only to have the content translated, but to have a constant support along the way. And for this is why it is fundamental that you verify if this is going to be really profitable or not. That is why the initial analysis is like basic. It's like 1, 2, 3. Otherwise, unfortunately, a lot of websites, like, they just translate, they think that that is, and they leave the website like that. And it's not, it shouldn't be like that. At the beginning, maybe, and this happened a lot when I was working before, we got interns that came from Germany or, for example, from France, and we always had a native people from the UK too around, just to make sure that everything that we did was really aligned and really validated from somewhere who was from there, just to make sure. They don't need to be like, like experienced marketers. Like, of course, when you reach a point, a maturity point, where your company compensates to do it, well, you can, of course. But at the beginning, it's just to have this input, this validation, this person who will be able to answer quickly without having necessary translation errors. So it's pretty much what you need to start with, little by little, but by doing the things well, always.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would love to hear some stories sometime. We don't have time today, but what happens when things go wrong? Nightmares of translations and content that you're shaking your head. You've been there.
Yes. Well, there are like very like typical type of translation errors that are featured online, like Chinese, like the typical literal translations that at some point people do, that from English to Chinese or something. So they end up saying something that they really didn't want it. But I will say that most of the times, even if we don't need to go to those extreme type of translation mistakes to unfortunately find things that are not necessarily really well translated. So, and there are like little things that we should always need to avoid. Even with English, American English and British English, so there are like little things always.
Over here.
Hey, how you doing? You showed 2 different examples, one having a translation function at the top right of the site, and the second example where Amazon actually sniffs your browser and says, we noticed that you're coming from Spain, would you like to visit our .es site? As far as achieving higher results in search rankings, would you recommend actually having a separate domain as in .co.uk versus .com? Or would the translation function be preferable?
That was not a translation function, but just a menu, a navigation to switch between versions.
Okay.
So no, you cannot translate like that the languages. It's like just to give your users the ability to switch between different versions of language versions and country versions, but it's not a translation function.
But it was still .com/.es.
Targeting different CCTLDs. The pro of targeting different CCTLDs when you are targeting different countries is that it will be much more geolocated. Not only from, let's forget for a minute the search engine, right? This is about users. When I visit that user that is .es, I understand that they are really in the country where I live, that they are really in Spanish, they are really targeting me. So it's the best possible scenario, it's the ideal scenario, right? But yes, you will need much more effort to promote those individual CCTLDs because at the end they are different entities, they are different domains. So you will need more work in order to improve their popularity at the beginning. So that is why at some point, if you cannot really have all of the resources from a technical and also promotional perspective to build all of these different websites, because at the end, so these are different websites, you can start with subdirectories. And what subdirectories have is that they will inherit the popularity of the main domain. So like this, you will be able to, at the beginning, not start from scratch. You will start with the link graph of the main domain from your English version that you will already be having from moment zero. So that is a good way. And then you can geolocalize each one of them through the webmaster tools, for example, from Google, from Bing, from Yandex. If you want to give the signal to the search engines that these are the subdirectory, but this subdirectory is really targeting to this country. So there are always pros and cons. You can see it later in the slide that I have shared with all of these criteria. So there's no like magic answer here, but it will be much more of your own possibilities and characteristics, really.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, unfortunately, this is time for our last question. I'm sorry if we can't get to all of you. We're going to go with you.
Hi, I'm Jill Quito. I was wondering if where you host your website will have any bearance on the search results, if you actually need to physically be hosted there.
That's great. Some time ago, it was a big signal because search engines couldn't, they didn't have hreflang, not a lot of people really were using CTLDs back then. Well, right now there are a lot of CDNs that also happen, not necessarily to give the most accurate signals towards IP for each one of the countries really at some point. So yes, if you can do it, do it. I mean, but you need to it needs to compensate really. It should be feasible for you. If you are going to need, for example, to migrate your whole website, it will be a nightmare. You will be losing more than you will be earning. If you are already using SSTLD, if you are already geo-targeting through all different ways, bringing a lot of links from very targeted specific geographical areas, this won't be like just an extra signal that won't compensate to your effort. So it's about, it's about analyzing really the pros and cons, and it will really compensate for your site to do it so.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Aleyda, thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.